Most compost problems don't start when the pile smells bad or stops heating. They start much earlier. At the moment, gardeners assume compost is just about throwing scraps together and waiting. That assumption is the step most gardens skip, and it's the reason compost ends up half-finished, unstable, or quietly robbing soil instead of feeding it. Compost is not just decomposition, it's a managed biological system, and when a few foundational steps are ignored, the cost shows up months or even years later in weak soil structure, inconsistent nutrients, and beds that never quite improve no matter how much compost you add. Composting experts like Rita Pelczar, with review by Joseph Tikhonievich, outline 8 common mistakes gardeners make. What ties all of them together is not laziness or lack of effort, but misunderstanding what compost actually needs to become soil rather than just rot. Most gardeners treat compost like a single container, not a process. Using only one pile or one bin is one of the most common long-term mistakes. When fresh material is constantly added to a single pile, decomposition never finishes. Microbes are always switching gears between fresh nitrogen-rich inputs and partially broken down material. The result is compost that looks dark but behaves immaturely in the soil. Nutrients release unevenly, fungi never stabilize, and soil life never gets a consistent food source. Having at least 2 piles changes everything. One pile is actively fed, while the other is left alone to finish. Advanced gardeners often use 3 stages without realizing it: an input pile, an active decomposition pile, and a finished compost zone. This separation is not about speed, it's about allowing biology to complete its work without interruption. Balance between browns and greens is about airflow, not math. The 3-to-1 ratio of browns to greens isn't a rigid formula, it's a way to manage oxygen. Greens collapse quickly, compressing the pile and squeezing out air. Browns create structure, holding space for oxygen to move. Too many greens turn compost anaerobic and smelly. Too many browns stall the pile completely. The practical fix is simple. Every time kitchen scraps, grass clippings, or fresh plant material goes in, it needs bulk around it. Dry leaves, straw, shredded paper, or untreated sawdust aren't filler, they are scaffolding. Without them, compost collapses under its own biological weight. Putting the wrong things in creates problems you can't fix later. Meat, dairy, grease, pet waste, and treated materials don't just attract pests, they alter the microbial balance in ways home compost systems can't recover from easily. Pathogens introduced at small scale don't always get hot enough to die off. Herbicide-treated grass clippings and treated wood sawdust can linger for years, quietly suppressing plant growth long after the compost looks finished. Diseased plants and large weeds are another overlooked issue. Home compost rarely reaches consistent temperatures high enough to neutralize every pathogen or seed. When those materials are added, the compost becomes a delivery system for problems rather than solutions. Skipping a microbial starter slows everything and weakens the result. Microorganisms do the real work of composting. While they naturally exist on organic matter, their populations start small. Without a starter, compost spends weeks ramping up instead of breaking down. Adding finished compost, garden soil, or even a handful of leaf mold introduces a mature microbial community that accelerates decomposition and improves compost quality. This isn't about speed alone. Compost that starts with a diverse microbial base finishes with one too. That diversity is what makes compost stable in soil instead of volatile. Water is the invisible line between compost and rot. Compost should feel like a wrung-out sponge. Too dry and microbes go dormant. Too wet and oxygen disappears. Excess moisture creates anaerobic conditions, leading to sour smells and nutrient loss. Dry piles stall and never heat properly. The fix is not dumping water or leaving it alone entirely, it's adjusting structure. If compost is wet, dry browns restore airflow. If it's dry, water is added gradually while mixing. Compost that smells earthy and feels warm is balanced. Compost that smells sharp or stagnant is not. Leaving compost uncovered costs heat and consistency. Open piles lose heat, dry unevenly, and, well, flood during heavy rain. Covers aren't about hiding compost. They regulate moisture and temperature. A simple plywood sheet, tarp over a frame, or bin lid makes winter composting possible and summer composting stable. The key is leaving airflow. Compost needs protection, not suffocation. A few inches of space between the pile and the cover allows oxygen exchange while preventing saturation. Aeration matters, but honestly, overdoing it breaks progress. Oxygen is essential, but constant turning disrupts fungal networks before they establish. Turning once or twice a week during active decomposition is enough. After that, less interference allows microbes to settle into stable communities. This aligns with guidance from educators like Erin Beagle of Roots to Harvest, who emphasizes that compost will still break down without constant turning, just more slowly. Overmanaging compost often creates more problems than it solves. The biggest long-term mistake is never letting compost finish. Continually adding material to an active pile is the composting step most gardens skip, and, honestly, the one they pay for later. Compost needs a finish line. Without it, gardeners apply half-finished material that continues decomposing in the soil, temporarily tying up nitrogen and stressing plants. Finished compost smells rich, feels crumbly, and shows no recognizable inputs. Larger items like eggshells or corn cobs may remain, but they're inert by that stage. Sifting and returning them to a new batch completes the cycle without restarting decomposition in the garden bed. So, why does all this really matter for soil health? Well, compost is not a fertilizer, it's a soil builder. When composting steps are rushed or even skipped, the soil gets organic matter without structure, nutrients without stability, and honestly, microbes without a proper habitat. Over time, garden beds just stop improving, even though compost is added year after year. Gardeners who slow down, separate the stages, manage the balance, and allow compost to finish properly see entirely different results. The soil becomes darker, looser, and much more resilient. Crops respond consistently instead of unpredictably. Composting really is easy, as Pelczar and Tichonovich point out, but, easy doesn't mean careless. The details are where compost either becomes black gold or turns into an ongoing disappointment. If you want compost that actually improves your soil year after year, stop treating it like a trash bin and start treating it like the biological process it truly is. That one shift honestly changes everything. If this helped clarify why compost sometimes fails despite good intentions, go ahead and subscribe to Gentle Herb Gardening and share this with someone who's still adding scraps to the same pile and wondering why their soil never improves. Practical knowledge in the end is what turns effort into results.